Hey everybody, so today I wanted to touch on what the falling away is, talked about in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. I've been getting a lot of really good questions, a lot of great comments talking about in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 3, where it says, "Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day, the day of the Lord, will not come unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition." Now, does that falling away mean the falling away from the faith, or does it mean a departure? Now, I have a couple good resources I want to read from today, but I want to put this out here and say right off the bat, I don't know myself. I tend to lean towards more of a departure, meaning that this is the pre-tribulation rapture, based on the sequence of the verses that follow it. For instance, in verse 4 it says, the son of perdition is revealed, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God. And then he says in verse 5, "Do you not remember that when I was still with you, I told you these things, and now you know what is restraining, that he might be revealed in his own time." So here we see a progression. We see a potential departure in the rapture. The Antichrist is revealed, talked about in Revelation chapter 6, verse 1. And then we see that the restrainer is also removed, which would be the Holy Spirit. So just want to give you a couple different viewpoints here. John MacArthur says the day of the Lord cannot occur until the deliberate abandonment of a formerly professed position, allegiance, or commitment occurs, referring to this religious rebellion. Some have suggested that this refers to the departure in the sense of the rapture. MacArthur says, in the context, however, this points to a religious defection, which is further described in verse 4. The language indicates a very specific event, not general apostasy, which exists now and will always exist. Rather, Paul has in mind the apostasy. This is an event in which is clearly and specifically identifiable and unique. The consummate act of rebellion, an event of final magnitude. So that's what John MacArthur thinks. Now, there's three different positions that you can take. Okay, number one interpretation is that it would be a rapture of apostasy. Okay, that would actually be concerning the rapture. The number two interpretation would be that it's the Antichrist causing this apostasy, and the number three interpretation would be that it's a religious apostasy, so falling away from the faith once for all delivered to the saints. Okay, John Welverut, I can't even say his last name, I'm sorry. He's a great Bible teacher from Dallas Theological Seminary, alludes to the difficulty in looking for the apostasy as an indicator of the soon-to-follow day of the Lord. In the 20th century, the situation is entirely different than it was for the Thessalonian church. Today, there is widespread apostasy. The fact is that there are many who are not preaching the true gospel and are denying the central doctrines of the Christian faith. So, to a certain degree, apostasy is already here. Now, many of you have heard of Tommy Ice. He runs the pre-tribulation rapture group. I want to read from his article because I think he does a really good job explaining why this could be potentially talking about the rapture. So it says, "Let no one in any way deceive you, for it will not come unless the apostasy comes first, and then the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction." So he says here, "I believe there is a strong possibility that this verse is speaking of the rapture." Now, what does he mean? So he says that the Greek noun apostasia, usually translated apostasy, is a reference to the rapture and should be translated departure. Thus, this passage would be saying that the day of the Lord will not come until the rapture comes before it. If apostasia is a reference to a physical departure, then 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 3 is strong evidence for a pre-tribulation rapture. Now let's look at the meaning of apostasia. The Greek noun apostasia is only used twice in the New Testament, 2 times. In addition to 2 Thessalonians 2:3, it occurs in Acts chapter 21 verse 21, where, speaking of Paul, it is said that you are teaching all the Jews who are among the Gentiles to forsake, the word is forsake, apostasia, Moses. The word is a Greek compound of apo, A-P-O, from astemia, stand. Thus, it has the core meaning of away from or departure from. The Lytle and Scott Greek lexicon defines apostasia first as a defection or a revolt, and secondly as a departure or disappearance. Gordon Lewis explains how the verb from which the noun apostasia is derived supports the basic meaning of departure in the following. He says, the verb may mean to remove spatially. There is little reason, then, to deny that the noun can mean such a spatial removal or departure. Since the noun is used only one other time in the New Testament of apostasy from Moses, in Acts 21:21, we can hardly conclude that this meaning is necessarily determined. The verb is used 15 times in the New Testament. Of these 15, only three have anything to do with a departure from the faith. Talked about in Luke 8, verse 13, 1 Timothy 4:1, and Hebrews 3:12. The word is used for departing from iniquity, from ungodly men, from the temple, from the body, and from persons. So he goes on to say it is with full assurance of proper study and with complete confidence in the original languages that the word meaning of apostasia is defined as departure. Now let me scroll down here. It says departure and the restrainer. Since pre-tribulation rapture believers believe that the restrainer mentioned in verses 6 and 7 is the Holy Spirit and teaches a pre-trib rapture, then it should not be surprising to see that there is similar progression of thought in the progression of verse 3. President of Faith Theological Seminary said the following, I wonder if you have noticed the striking parallel between this verse and verses 7 and 8. According to your suggestion of verse 3, mentioning the departure of the church as coming first, it then tells of the revealing of the man of sin. In verses 7 and 8, we find the identical sequence. Verse 7 tells of the removal of the church. In verse 8 says, and then shall that wicked one be revealed. Thus, upon closer examination, the passage shows an inner unity and coherence. If we take the word apostasia in its general sense of departure, while a superficial examination would easily lead to a wrong interpretation as falling away because of the proximity of the mention of the man in sin. Kenneth Wiest, a Greek scholar from Moody Bible Institute, added the following. To support apostasia as a physical departure, he says, but then apostasia, of which Paul is speaking, precedes the revelation of Antichrist in his true identity, and that which holds back his revelation. Verse 6. The apostasia cannot be either a general apostasy in Christianity, which does not precede the Antichrist, nor can it be the particular apostasy which is the result of his activities in making himself the lone object of worship. Furthermore, that which holds back his revelation in verse 3 is vitally connected with what happens in verse 7. He who holds back the same event. The latter is, in my opinion, the Holy Spirit and his activities in the church. All of which means that I am driven to the inescapable conclusion that the apostasy in verse 3 refers to the rapture of the church, which precedes the day of the Lord and holds back the revelation of the man of sin who ushers in the world aspect. Now, in conclusion, let's just wrap this up. In conclusion, the fact that apostasia most likely has the meaning of physical departure is a clear support for a pre-trib rapture. If this is true, then it means that a clear prophetic sequence is laid out by Paul early in his apostolic ministry. Paul teaches in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 that the rapture will occur first, before the day of the Lord commences. It is not until after the beginning of the day of the Lord that the Antichrist is released, resulting in the events described by him in chapter 2 of 2 Thessalonians. This is the only interpretation that provides hope for a discomforted people. I hope this is a blessing to you, and I will include some links regarding these articles so you can study for yourself. God bless.